Good afternoon, Bernard Keeby here. 8 strategies to double your profits in 90 days. These 8 strategies work best in 95% of cases. So for small business owners, focusing on 1 or 2 of these things at a time and implementing all 8 of them will get you that result, double your profits in 90 days. Now, just to put this in context, I've previously spoken about the 80-20 rule and about the fact that if you concentrate on 20% of what you do on a daily basis, that gives you 80% of your results. So if you spent more time concentrating on the 20% and less time doing all the other things, you would get, 2-3 times your profits, and you'd even end up with spare time. So what are the 20% of the things that you need to be concentrating on? Well, it's the 5-step profit formula, which basically says if you can generate more leads and then convert a higher proportion of them, that will give you more customers. And if you can get your customers to buy from you slightly more frequently and spend more each time they shop with you or purchase from you, that will increase your turnover. And then if you can increase your gross profit margin on everything you sell, that will increase your profits. And all you've really got to do is make small improvements in each of those 5 key areas: leads, lead conversion, number of transactions, the value of spent each time, the value spent each time, and your gross margin. And we've previously seen that if you could just make a 1% improvement a week in each of those 5 variables by finding the time to work on your business, which many business owners don't ever do, if you could find the time to do that, make a 1% a week improvement, you would double your profits in 90 days, and it would be by concentrating on just those 5 things. So how would you do that? Well, you would concentrate on these 8 strategies. And now what I've done is I've labeled them. So L stands for more leads, P stands for more profits or more transactions. This one's both. C stands for conversions. P stands for profits. Actually, P stands for average price. I do apologize. Anyway, right, these 8 strategies. So first one is effective advertising. Now, what do I mean by effective advertising? Well, this applies to anything. So it applies to newspapers. If you did advertise in a cheap magazine, it applies to your website. Now, many people have websites and the websites don't follow the proper formula. And they may be better off having a landing page which does follow the proper formula. Now, the proper formula is very simple. I'll show you here. It basically says that you start with what's called an interrupt. Now, what the interrupt does is it says, you're my ideal customer or client, so this appeals to you. So you need to pay attention to this because you've got an issue or a concern that you haven't got a solution to generally, or you're looking for something in particular from a supplier and you haven't got it. I can, this is the sub-headline, I'm going to engage with you. I can offer you a solution to this thing that you're looking for. Then this is the body copy. So on a landing page, it could be a video. In an advert, it's written copy. And then here you have what's called a risk-free offer. Now, all 4 of those things are really important. The first thing is this interrupt. What you'll see in an awful lot of adverts is, first of all, just the name of the business at the top, which is not an interrupt headline, because generally people are walking around on autopilot, and unless something jumps out at them and addresses an issue they've got on their minds, this so-called conversation in their head, going on their head, they won't take any notice. So let's just say that you do have an interrupt headline, which is what you'll often see in adverts on the television, for example. The trouble then is that what a lot of people do is they'll interrupt, they'll grab your attention, and then they'll try and make an offer to sell you something. And it doesn't work like that. It does work for the big companies because they will repeat this advert over and over and over and over and over again. So this headline and this interrupt sticks with you. But for small companies, it doesn't work. The small companies, small businesses, it's different. You've got to engage here because what you've done is you've grabbed people's attention there. You've woken them up. You've brought them into what's called uptime. Now you've got to keep them in uptime by making them aware that you can offer them a solution. Then you've got to explain how the solution works. But then this bit here is very important because you shouldn't be trying to sell all the time because 99% of buyers are not ready to buy. It's been proven that only at any given time, only 1% of potential buyers are now buyers. So this offer here has got to be what's called a low threshold offer, a low risk offer. And the whole idea is to get this prospect to engage with you and then to you can accompany them on what's called the buyer's journey, which I've previously spoken about and which we'll come back to when we look at the drip campaign. So effective advertising basically says you need an interrupt, you need an engage which promises a solution to your interrupt issue that you've raised. You need an educate, which explains how it works, and you need a low risk, low threshold offer. And that's how you structure an advert or a landing page or any other promotional piece of material. That will generate you more leads. Joint ventures, very, very powerful. What a joint venture means is someone else who has the same ideal prospects as you have, but is not a competitor of yours. So someone who deals in the same marketplace. And this can work in a variety of ways. It could be that you could engage in joint lead generation activities, like for instance, joint presentations. It could be that you can pass referrals to each other, that you can actually pay affiliate fees to each other. So it's very powerful. So when people go networking, one of the most important things they look for is who could they form a joint venture with. Again, very powerful in terms of generating leads. This one, an upsell or a cross-sell, the way that works is it's on the 5-step profit formula. Every time someone buys from you, getting them to spend a bit more each time. And you can do that in 2 ways. You can either have a larger value proposition that you can offer to them, which is called an upsell. So the classic is McDonald's. Would you like to go large? Or you can have a cross-sell. And the way a cross-sell works is, well, you're buying this off me, so you're now, putting your hand in your pocket and ready to purchase from me. Can I sell you this as well? Although you might not phrase it like that. So that would be, would you like chips with that? Now, any business can do this. Very few do. But it's been proven that if you have an upsell and a cross-sell strategy in place, 34% of the time, you will get more people buying from you. They will spend more 34% of the time. So a very powerful strategy. So again, that will now increase the average price per transaction. This one is similar, really. If you've got extra products and services that you can offer when people buy from you, then that's effectively similar to a cross-sell. But the reason it fits in here is because if you've got joint venture partnerships, then you could be selling as extra products that you make money from. You could be selling products and services provided by your joint venture partner. Now, that joint venture partner could either pay you some sort of reward, affiliate fee, introduction fee, or it could just be that you do this for each other, that you both make wider product ranges available for each other. But it makes it easier for each of you to actually increase the average size of the transaction every time someone buys from you. So that's how you expand your product range. Again, that will increase the average price people pay every time they buy for you, and it will probably increase the number of transactions, because if you've got a wider product offering, service offering, then people are going to buy from you more often rather than go somewhere else. A downsell, now the way that works is someone says or feels or believes they can't afford your main product offering. Well, could you offer them something that is lower price because it's lower value, but it still means that they buy from you? And because they're buying from you and spending a small amount, they're now engaged with you as a customer. And because they're engaged with you as a customer, at some future date, you can then hopefully work on persuading them to spend more with you and to upgrade and to go for the higher value offering. And it's called a downsell. Now, the downsell, that's a great lead conversion strategy, because rather than turn people away because they can't afford your main offering, if you've got a lower value, lower price proposition, they'll still buy from you, and they're in your they're in your, I don't know, customer bank, or they're in your funnel. This one, right, when we talked about effective advertising, we talked about having what's called a low threshold or low risk offer. Oh, and by the way, this perforated edge around it always works, because that persuades people to buy more often. But the whole idea of this low risk offer is that what people want on the buyer's journey is information. So they want information about why they might need the product or service you're offering, how they can overcome the objections they might have towards it, like it's inconvenient, it means disrupting what they've already got, it might be expensive. And then once they've done all that, they want information as to who they should buy from. Well, what they're looking for is a flow of information along the buyer's journey until they become now buyers, which, as we said previously, is about 1 to 3% of the time in number of cases. So if they're looking for information, when you've captured their information here by an effective advert, what you now do here is engage with them by a series of communications. It doesn't have to be all the same. So it could be phone calls, it could be letters, it could be emails. But what you're doing is you're not trying to sell to them. You're offering them extra information. So it could be things like information packs, checklists, testimonials, ideas, ideas as to why you might want a conservatory, for example. But all this information, and it can be repetitive. It could be that something that you give as information early on in the process, you then provide in more detail later on in the process. So you might give them an ideas guide, for example, with maybe 8 ideas in it, and then subsequently you might send them a communication going into more detail on each one of the 8 ideas. And the thing is, if you accompany them along this buyer's journey, then that will increase your conversion rate massively, because it's been proven that people need 5, 8, 12 more points of contact before typically they will buy. Most sellers give up before they've made 4 contacts, and actually most give up way before that. 20% keep going long enough to get 80% of the business. That's the old 80-20 rule again. So this drip campaign increases your conversion and puts you in the 20% of businesses that gets 80% of the business. So this one feeds into this one, if you like. The effective advertising generates leads, which gets you contact details, which means you can then engage in a drip campaign without trying to sell and without threatening. The trouble with trying to sell before someone reaches the buyer stage is it triggers off the fight or flight response. It scares people off, basically. If they're not ready to buy and you try and sell to them, you lose them. It's a bit like if you're fishing and you try and land the fish too soon, you lose the fish. It's probably not like that at all, but it just struck me as a good analogy. Now, here, bundling, not discounting. A common fault you get is that business owners think they need to sell more, and what they do is they discount their prices. And what they don't realize is that typically if you discount your price, say 10%, you might be reducing your profit margin by 20, 30, 40%. It depends on what your gross margin is. So for example, if you make £30 in 100 profit on something you sell, if you reduce your price by £10, 10%, you're now only making £20 profit rather than 30. So you've reduced your profit by a third. So a 10% discount normally means a much larger hit on your profits. So you don't want to be doing that. What you actually want to be doing is, rather than discounting your prices, you want to be offering extra value. And when I say offering extra value, there's an awful lot to this as well, because there's one of the things is to offer extra value, and the second thing is to explain better than the others do what the value is that you're offering. Because typically what you'll see your competitors doing is any promotional or advertising material they use, it'll have the name of the business, it'll have how long they've been in operation, and it'll say things like a friendly family firm, been going since such and such, top quality. It'll all be generalizations. Whereas if you explain in detail why your product offers excellent value and why it is top quality, then you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, because 1, you have got the quality, which means you don't have to discount, and 2, you're explaining it better, which again means you don't have to discount. Now, the whole idea of bundling, what that means is that rather than offer a discount, you add in extra products or services to your offering to give extra value, and that means that you make more profit each time and you're not devaluing your offering. Because once you start to go into the discount arena, it's very difficult in future occasions not to offer discounts. So you don't want to be going the discount route, but many businesses do. So offer extra value through offering extra products and services and explaining it better rather than discount. And then the last one is cost control. Now, very few people understand how you work out your profit and how to do something called a break-even chart. But if you do a break-even chart, what you show is how much your sales revenue is compared to what your costs are. And you show that until you sell a certain amount, you're making a loss. And then when you go beyond a certain volume of sales, you start to make a profit. Now, the reason that's important is because if you then make very small adjustments to your costs, typically if you make a 5 to 10% reduction in your fixed costs and in your variable costs, and then you put your prices up slightly because you're offering better value, you can typically increase your profit by 30, 40% with very little effort. And it's all to do with actually analysing your costs. Now, it could be, for example, that you hire people on apprenticeships rather than, other people. That could be a cost-saving route. It could be you negotiate deals with your suppliers. It could be that instead of dealing with 8 suppliers, you deal with 2 or 3, so they give you a better deal. It could be that you offer, I don't know, you might offer take longer to pay your creditors, for example. There's all sorts of things you can do to actually reduce your cost basis, and if you do, you can make a huge difference to the profitability of your business. So, in summary, These 8 strategies will work 95% of the time. And if you worked on 1 or 2 of them at a time and spent your time concentrating on making small weekly improvements to how many leads you generate, what proportion you convert to give you your number of customers, how often they buy and how much they spend each time to give you your turnover, and how much your gross margin is to give you your profit, then you could literally, by making 1% a week improvements, double your profits in 90 days. And the way you would do it is through knowing how to structure your adverts and any promotional materials that will generate more leads, developing joint ventures which will give you more leads, having an upsell or cross-sell strategy in place, which will mean that people spend more each time they buy from you, expanding your product range because you've got joint ventures in place perhaps, which again will increase the amount that people spend with you and the number of times they buy from you, having a downselling operation, which basically means you'll convert more prospects into paying clients who you can then convert to a higher proposition later on, having a drip campaign, which increases your conversions because it accompanies your prospects on their buyer's journey, bundling, offering added value rather than discounting, and analysing your costs and see if there's any scope for saving money there, because again, just relatively minor savings and costs can make a huge difference to your bottom line profit. So there we have it. 8 steps that work 95% of the time to double your profits in 90 days. So I hope you found that useful. My name is Bernard Keavy, and thank you very much for watching. And I can see here Samuel Leeds, Deirdre Corrigan, Brian, Richard, Adam Henry, Nigel Scrimshaw, Stephen Grinnell, and Barry Alloway. Very pleased that you tuned in. Thank you very much. Thanks.